for being here. Really appreciate it. My name is Travis Ruskus. I am here in the United States. I'm actually here in Colorado visiting family. This is during the holidays, so it's been interesting to be here, especially during this time, but very grateful to be here. It's been one hell of a year with 2020, so if you're seeing this, congrats, you survived for now. But what I want to do is just teach you how to rock balance. And I think I'm just going to go ahead and dive in. People will start to trickle in. Um, but why rock balancing is so important, why I've devoted my life to this, I'm a full-time rock balance artist, is because how we do anything is kind of how we do everything. So something as small as how we balance a rock has huge ripple effects into how we treat others, how we live our life. So my goal during this time together is to just get you to align your energy, and then from that you can live, a more enlightened or just happy life. So it's just a small thing, but it has really big ripple effects. And I have taught thousands of people from all over the world how to rock balance, and it is just something I see over and over again of how we kind of approach it with a little bit of skepticism. We're not quite sure, or maybe we're a little too confident, but whatever happens, the rock balance serves as kind of a spiritual compass. And through the process of just balancing some rocks, you can clear your energy inside and then just carry on your day. So I wrote this book. It's called The Rock Balancer's Guide. And this is just a summary of everything I've learned teaching thousands of people. But what I did in this book is I deconstructed that moment of people wanting to balance. And I find that, when we're trying to do some rock balance or meditate or something like that, we're kind of just in this pursuit of enlightenment, that we're looking for a little bit more, like answers or just, something. And I found that there's basically 7 principles of enlightenment. And if you can think of enlightenment more as alignment with the moment, that will help serve you well in this process, because there's moments where I've been out on the beach doing these epic balances and I feel just so enlightened. I feel so connected to every rock on the planet, every planet in the solar system, and beyond that, I just feel connected to it all. And then there's moments where I feel a little rough, I feel a little angry, I feel sad, and um, it's totally okay to have both of those. I think to be enlightened, you have to really see those moments of bliss and enjoy them, because they're not going to last forever. And then on the other side, you have to see those moments of weakness and failure, and really learn from them, because they're not going to last forever. So as we go through this process, you're definitely going to have moments of bliss, balancing, and then you're definitely going to have moments of fear and failure. And as we go through these 7 principles, if you can get through all 7 and you're feeling like hell yes in every single one, then congratulations, you are enlightened, and my work here is done. But usually what happens is, in one of the 7 principles, or maybe a couple, you're not feeling like it's so strong. Um, and what I ask is that you just kind of lean into that. You look at that weakness and kind of warm up to it, and eventually it will just dissolve. A brief example is, like, I know with me, anger and sadness, I definitely tend to like try to avoid, because they're negative emotions. But when I can start to really just, okay, what am I angry about? What am I sad about? Just let it kind of wash over me. I can kind of move beyond that. So as we start to balance, you know, let the same thing happen with you. Just really look into yourself, what you're hiding, what you're showing, and you'll make some really awesome balances. But then also, when you carry on the rest of your day, when you're driving in traffic or answering emails, it will carry on into those moments as well. So, okay. Hopefully you have by now gathered some rocks or some crystals, or, like I'm saying, some random objects to balance. We want to get your hands moving on your end so that you can really start to feel what I'm going to be talking about here. And the first principle in this journey is to breathe. So before we even get our hands on any rocks, I want you to just get cozy in your chair, take a few breaths. Nothing to do except breathe right now. And if you can, just try to notice this moment in the story that is your life. And as you keep breathing, what we're going to do is take 3 breaths together. So exhale all the air out. Breathe in your first breath, nice and full. When you get to the top and you exhale, just become aware. Try to feel where the oxygen goes in your body. Second breath, nice and full. When you get to the top, just relax. Let it go. Third breath, go ahead and breathe in the deepest, fullest breath of your day. And when you get to the top, just enjoy this moment in whatever shape or form that is to you. And as you keep breathing, just keep enjoying and keep enjoying. And if you can, just try to spread your love out into the world with that enjoyment. See if you can wrap the whole world with it. So this is just a really brief ninja meditation you can do while you're driving in traffic. I don't recommend you balance rocks while you're driving in traffic, but you can take a few breaths and it will just help you really see the moment for as it is, because I really believe that all the answers we're seeking are being shown to us, but it's us kind of having this cloudy vision that can get in the way. So if we take a few breaths, clarity can kind of come through. And I know there's definitely some times when I do these crazy balances that I'm trying to do it like so many different crazy ways, and ultimately it's not working. I'm just thinking too much. But when I can really breathe, I come back into my body, I can feel the stone, and usually it's just a subtle little shift and the whole thing clicks into place. So whether it's with personal relationships, you're talking with someone, I know we can get kind of reactive with some people. If you take a breath during those times, you can kind of see where they're coming from, or just kind of a clearer picture. And I know definitely in the corporate world, I've been doing a lot of these workshops with companies and CEOs and all this kind of stuff, and I encourage them. When you have the chaos of the day going on, you can't stop that. But what you can do is just take a little breath and just kind of see through. So, first step here is to breathe. Second principle is opportunity. And if you can look at kind of the opportunity you've given yourself, hopefully you have some rocks, you have some crystals, or random things to balance. And if we just look at all the rocks on planet Earth, first off, it's a lot. If you think about how many grains of sand there are in the entire world, that is a lot of grains of sand. There is just so much out there in our world, but we've kind of been fed scarcity. We've been fed to not trust each other, but in reality, there's enough resources for everyone. And there's a bunch of opportunity even when things aren't going so well. And, one example for me is these online workshops have been completely transformative to my career and my life because of coronavirus. Instead of me having to go live place to place, I still will do that in the future, but now I can just be like a portal into your home and wherever you're at and just go all over the world again and again. And it's just an opportunity in a really hard moment. So, an interesting fact that I learned is that there are more stars in the sky than there are grains of sand on our planet. And I just think that is incredible. This world is so vast, and just trying to get you to open up to see that abundance. Because there was me a couple years ago where I just, still in that tunnel vision scarcity mindset. And now that I see that, there's so many people on the planet that can balance rocks, that it's just, it's opened up new doors for me. So I encourage you to kind of start to lift that lid on yourself. When we start to think about opportunity, what we want to do is just think of you and me at the edge of the ocean, okay? As we look out at the horizon line, that line right where the sky meets the water, that line represents your greatest dream, kind of what we're sailing towards here in life, why you're here. And if we kind of look backwards at the waves crashing at our feet, there's just waves and waves and waves until you meet the wave that's at our feet. And the wave that's at our feet just represents this moment and how you're treating this moment and what that's doing to carry you towards your greatest dream. So, if you want to, in the chat, if you're joining us live, just tell me what your greatest dream is. I'd love to hear, and also maybe where you're visiting from. But I'll just tell you, my greatest dream, my opportunity is to balance rocks on the moon. I just have this crazy thought that maybe I could, you know, in 10 years, hopefully I'm still doing these workshops, do one with NASA. They're like, hey, we have this extra seat. Do you want to come on? And yeah, maybe that's not realistic, but that thought of to the moon for me, to the moon, it just propels me forward. It's easy for me to do 100 people in a workshop. It's easy for me to do 1,000 because it just allows me to get to where I really want to be. Okay. So for you, your greatest dream, what are you doing in this moment? How are you reacting to the things around you to really take you towards that? Okay. So I'm not trying to get super deep with this, but I just want to help you. And I know that maybe in 5 years, there could be a spark. You'll see a rock somewhere, and that maybe you'll start to think about this a little bit deeper. Anyway, so with the opportunity, the real practical opportunity in front of us, I'm just going to quickly talk about this crystal Zen garden that I developed at the beginning of the year. And this has been really amazing because normally I'll go out and I'll do like these epic balance quests out in, a mountain or a river or by the beach. And it's super awesome. I recommend you do that. And actually, at the end of this, I'm going to talk about leave no trace and doing it responsibly in the wild. But that aside, I'm right here on my kitchen table. And I can still balance rocks. I can still kind of go to those places. And me just having this little crystal Zen balance garden has just allowed me to, every morning after I have breakfast, I try to put in my routine to just do a little balance of the day. And it just helps kind of clear me out before I have to answer emails or deal with any sort of friction. I can just kind of seek within and just kind of go without. So I encourage you to have one of these. I'm going to quickly kind of deconstruct what I got here, but if anything, I just encourage you to have a little space in your home that you dedicate to every day, whether it's like, a little reading nook, or maybe even it's just like your space is just your favorite cup. And you're like, okay, I'm always going to have a cup of tea in my favorite cup. These 3 minutes are like my moments for me. That alone has really transformed my life. I can just go on and on about, making time for yourself, but it's really, really important because if you're just waking up and just reacting, like, you're not going to make a really good rock balance, let alone have an awesome life. You want to really kind of have your own vision and then create with intention. And then you'll notice that the life you want is being created. So with this, I have a simple fruit serving tray. You can put donuts in it or whatever. It's just in a kitchen item. It's 1 foot long, 1 foot wide, and it's 2 inches deep. And I like to have it a little bit deep so that if the balance falls over like that, there's a little splash zone and the sand isn't going to go all over the table. In here, I have 5 pounds of clear, coarse sand. And if you're going to make this, I encourage you to really get creative with the sand color. I like the white because as I have the rake, I can kind of see the grooves in it. But I've done it with black sand. And when I have like these clear crystals on black sand, it really looks like I'm balancing rocks on the moon. So um, that's something to think about. I think in the future, I might experiment with red sand or something like that, get a desert vibe. But there's that. Why the sand is cool too is because when I use this rake, this little Zen rake, and I rake it, it looks like water. And as I start to have some stone elements around it and balance it, it just has like this mini landscape energy to it. And this is, like I'm saying, on my kitchen counter. So I just think it's super cool, and I encourage you to do it. I had a group of executives last week, and they were obsessed with the raking. They actually ordered these kits before the workshop, and they were just obsessed with it. So I think it's because it's so soothing. They're really stressed out, and I encourage you to have the little raking with it. So in here, I have also some crystals. I'm not going to get too much into the crystal healing, just because I could do a whole workshop with it. But basically, these just align with the different chakras or energy centers of the body. And I just like when I balance them and have them together, that it's like my different chakras are getting balanced. So we're going to be doing that anyway, even if you're using rocks, but it just goes a little bit deeper. And I like having these different crystals because they actually are at different frequencies to get made, as they're kind of compressed in the earth. So if you have more questions about the crystals, pop them in the chat. I would love to hear if you have any comments or insights in this process. Just put it all in the chat. But I'm going to go ahead and clear out all my crystals. I encourage you also at this point to just kind of clear off your area. You want to have a nice kind of blank canvas for us to get started. Little tip too is I like to tap the crystals just to knock off any sand so it's not going all over the table. Okay. Now there is actually one last little thing with my setup here, and that is my friend Hanuman. So he is a Hindu god. I'm not pushing any religion on you. I'm not specific into one religion. I love them all. I love the whole world. It's an abundant place. But the story of Hanuman is just, I really like it. Him just being the hand of God, being in service of others. And this is a reminder for you guys that I am really just in service for you. I know it's easy when I have like these gold crystals and I'm doing this workshop to get wrapped up in ego and materialism, but I'm doing this for you, and I've seen transformation in so many people when they balance. I just want you to know that like he's here as a spark for you guys to know that I'm just doing this because I want to make the world a better place. So I have my little friend Hanuman. He's my totem, and I just put him in my garden when I'm done. And it's really nice when I can look back and see Hanuman in my garden. So if you have a totem, if you have something specific that you believe in, or a little kind of knick-knack that someone gave you, I encourage you to bring it around to your station here, and just it helps make it your own unique vibe, your little own unique energy here. So I've had people, it's gone from like this cool thing to like this really fun thing when people introduce their totems. So that's the last little thing about this setup. So if you look here, I have a little bit of craters from the previous session, and I'm just going to go ahead and shake it. You can see it's like a nice clean breath, just clearing it out. I'm actually going to say too that underneath I have these little felt pads, and this is just a great little bonus because I can just slide it around and it doesn't mark up the table. So we've dove into opportunity. Okay. I'm going to just look in the chat just for a moment, see you guys. Okay, cool. Hope you're ready to get started now. So once we have opportunity, right, we breathe into the moment. We start to see all the opportunity around us. Now is the point where we have to really believe in ourselves enough to go after these opportunities. So if you can think of it kind of like a sun in your belly, just beaming outwards, that intuition, that confidence, we're going to need to believe in ourselves right now to pick up the first stone. So if you can, in this ocean of abundance, I want you to pick one, and this is going to be your base. So go ahead and just set it down. You want it to be nice and solid. I like to start with something a little bit more rough, and I'll explain in a moment or two why that is, but yeah, easy, right? You believe in yourself enough to pick up the first stone. And I hope that was easy for you. I've had people that have had quite a bit of difficulty because there's so many options. How do you choose one? And I can really say, well, do you believe in free will, that you make the choice, or do you believe in fate, that like ultimately that rock was supposed to be here? So I don't have an answer for you because it kind of depends on what you believe, but ultimately, just trust your gut. Try not to think too much. And I notice that people will start to have their hands move. The soul will just kind of do the work for you. So, when you have your first rock right here, what I want you to do is just remember this feeling of kind of how easy it is to just place that first rock. Because as we start to get and do some really complex stuff, 7 rocks high, or even just 3, we're going to start to get a little uh, unconfident, a little bit scared, kind of doubting. And what you want to do is just remember how you feel right now, because it's when you're at the edge, when it feels like it's almost there, but it's not quite working. That's when you have to have the belief to really carry you forward, and it will click into place. So, believe. I'm not going to spend too much time with belief, but just know that when you're at that edge, you got to believe. Okay? So now is the fun part where we're going to start balancing. And as we move from breathing into the moment to seeing all the opportunity around us to then believing in ourselves to go after that opportunity, now is the time where we're actually going to have to find balance. Because if we start believing in ourselves enough to go after every opportunity, we're going to start to stretch ourselves thin and kind of get burnout. So, what we want to do is just find balance, find that peace. And that's really what this rock balance is. So, if you can go like this with your hand, and it's just like a little Italian capiche, you know what I'm talking about? Go like this, and you'll see that there's a little triangle in your hand. And this just represents the base rock. And what we're going to do is put another rock right in top, and you can feel around. There's 3 points of contact, that little triangle. So the 1, 2, 3 will get it to lock into place. So if I can just demonstrate with a rock, just going to feel around, right? Hands kind of nice and light. Just feel where those 3 points of contact are, and then it will just click into place. So, like I said, this represents the base rock, and there's little indentations in every single rock. I like to find something that has a nice little golf ball dimple in it. And then on a very basic level, we just put the rock down. You have the 1, 2, 3, where it locks into place. So we want to, lift our limits definitely and explore the stone fully. So I encourage you to try to balance it on its nose. Try to balance it in the most difficult way possible. And I like to have something a little more round to go into that rough to really work with that gripping and that pinching that happens. But just go ahead and feel where those 1, 2, 3 points of contact are. And you want to maybe spin the rock, or if it's falling over, you just kind of guide it back up, and it will start to fight you less the more it starts to come into its center. Okay, so hopefully you're there with me. Give yourself a few breaths, a few moments to just try to find this balance. And if you've already found it, that's awesome. Try not to keep going with these rocks. I know once we get one, we want to do 12, but just stay with this one rock. And what I want you to do for the next few minutes is to just see how many different ways you can balance this one rock. So maybe try to keep a count. We're not competing or keeping score or anything like that, but what I want you to do is really explore this one rock before we start to explore with all the other ones. So let's get started with it. And you'll notice it will click into place when you start to do it. What I like to do is every new way that I balance it, I'll just do a gentle breath just to kind of honor the stone, just take a moment to be a little patient. And you don't have to be super fancy too. You can do it nice and flat. That counts as a way to balance it. And also too, if you look at mine, I have a little chunk missing out of this nice round stone that would make a perfectionist crazy. But For all you perfectionists out there, I want you to really embrace the imperfection, because what this does is it actually gives me a new way to balance the stone. And like I have this other rock here. I don't even know what shape this is because it's so imperfect, but it gives me a lot of opportunity to do some cool balances. So really lean into the imperfection. That is the Zen way, kind of like as a tree grows, the way the branches are just imperfect, it makes it so beautiful. And as we start to do these balances, I don't want to see any straight up and down poles. I want to see kind of you exploring the rocks and making these cool sculptures. So hopefully you've been exploring your stone and you're really figuring out all the ways to balance it. What I want you to do is kind of find and like return back to what you think the strongest way to balance it is. A little trick I like to do is to just press my finger down, and you can see my finger's bending because I'm pressing down so hard. So this just represents where that next rock is going to go. If I'm pressing down on the side, it's getting kind of wobbly, so obviously the next rock isn't going to go there. So where I press down, the next rock goes on top. And now, the last thing I'll say with balance is equality. You want to look at the materials you have, and some may be clearer or shinier than others, but they're just unique. And if you can look at yourself and the uniqueness you are, there's many people in this workshop right now, but none of them are you. And I really just see it as, we have this world where there's just hierarchy. We create so much hierarchy in our jobs and our relationships. And I just see us all as equal. We all breathe the same air. So as you start to do this balance, just kind of love them all and try not to get so obsessed about the top rock, because the secret to a really successful rock balance is having a strong foundation. So that's why I spend a little of our time just balancing one rock over and over again, is because I want you to have a strong foundation. So as we've mastered balance, I want you to start to lift your limits. And now is really where the fun begins. And once you kind of have one rock, I want you to see how high you can take it, or see how wide you can balance this. A little trick that I have too is, you can see now I have a smooth bottom with this rock, and all you're going to do is just basically flip it. So you see I have this smooth, and that little triangle, you're just going to feel around and see where it will click into place if you're going to have a rough rock on top. I recommend you do rough, smooth, rough, smooth, rough, smooth, because it really just helps it kind of pinch and lock into place. If you do smooth and smooth, it's really difficult, but even on the smooth rocks, there's really small indentations that you can balance on. So right now, we're just going to start to explore our limits. Okay, so yeah, let's just get started with it. This is really where the breath comes into play. So just breathe out any doubt. You got this. And hopefully you're starting to pop the bubble of what you thought is possible. Like if you think of, this Zoom window that I'm in right now, this is the limit, right? But where's my hand right now? It's beyond that. And I think that we have to discover what the true limit is with this. You can also do small to big. These stones are really strong, so they can take a lot of pressure. You can do big to small, see how tall you can do it. But what I'm going to do, and when we're talking about limits, is just switch to crystals, because I'm thinking about material and like what are the limits of the material that I could balance. I did a couple workshops with a lot of people, and 40% are balancing fruit. So there's a limit. You're redefining. Okay, a rock balance can be a fruit balance, and I saw some really cool ideas with people doing that. So hopefully now you are really starting to experiment. I know that there's not a lot of people with their video or audio, which is totally understandable, but normally I hear rocks falling at this point. And I actually want to give you a little applause if your balances are falling over, because it means that you're actively pushing the barrier. You're discovering what your limit is. And when it falls over, I really want you to just listen to that weakness. Like I was saying in the beginning, just notice, why is it weak? And when you notice that, every time I do that, I always rebuild that one part a lot stronger. So if you're finding that it's falling over, um, really listen to the weakness. Another tip is to maybe just lower your standards. You don't need to be super awesome, amazing. You know, uh, I've the only difference between me and you is that I've just failed a lot more. I've just continued to pick myself up and learn and evolve. So just keep going with it. Really lowering your standards will help you, because if you're trying to do like some crazy point balance thing, then like it's hard for you to balance something on top. I recommend that you try that just to see if you can, but I see a lot of pain and frustration when people are trying to get too fancy too quickly. So if you can just lower your standards, it actually just gives you some momentum to kind of keep building forward. As we start to talk about limits too, it's really redefining what a rock balance is, because I've done them, big to small, as tall as I can and stack. And after a while, I'm just like, it gets kind of boring. And I recommend, you try that if you're out in the wild or something, because like it'll start to gently sway but still hold. It's really kind of cool to look at. Um, but after a while, I was starting to think about, how wide can I make a rock balance? And like here, you have a nice little counterbalance. If I don't have this top crystal, this will fall. So I'm just I could just with my finger just hold some pressure, and then this just represents that pressure. So I'm just gonna kind of feel around, and there you go. So try maybe some counterbalances. Something else that you can do is spacing. This is really fun to do. If you can see right here, there's like a little tunnel, and right where the two crystals meet is just that same little triangle. They're just locked in just like that. And why this is super effective is because when I press down all along the ridge, it's really strong. It's not just one point, like the whole thing is like a solid bridge. So you can do spacing on spacing, and just make a really cool thing. But right now, hopefully you're doing some balances. And really, before we move on, all I want you to have is just something that you think is your limit. That if you were to put on just one more, the whole thing would collapse. And like in this moment, you're at your edge, and you can take the hands off. Kind of doing some double spacing on my end. This has a really cool effect. I do want to show you in the book here, I did this really epic balance where if you look over here, it's just a bunch of spacing. These rocks are just leaning up on each other, and maybe a few balances in the middle, but it creates this really cool structure. And is that a rock balance? I don't know, but it looks cool. I feel something. So, and then over here, you got a nice bridge just pinched together. And then in the middle, I put some balances on top of that. So it's a balance on a balance. And I'm not showing these to compete with you or show how special I am. I'm just trying to get you to redefine what you think a rock balance is. And, limits can be translated into your job. And like, I know we have these boxes that we're supposed to be in, but maybe you could just redefine what that is, work with that, and kind of evolve the position because you're redefining the limits. So I am going to also be pushing my limits here. I'm not just getting you to push your limits. So give me a few minutes to just kind of work through this. I hope that you're also working through it on your end, seeing what we're really made of here. And remember to breathe, just clear it out. I know I'm at my limit when my hand starts shaking and I feel like I'm getting away with something. So I'm not at that point yet. Um, in this process, try not to fall into the just one more mantra. Like even right now, I can feel like I got these, but like just one more. And then I put it up and just one more. And if you are stuck in that, you're never going to be satisfied. So really what you want to do is just breathe and realize like your hands are shaking a little bit. You haven't gone here before. This is totally okay. Okay. So this is just nice and chill. We're just kind of letting the silence do the work. And remember that belief that we had in kind of the beginning of this? This is where you really carry it with you. You have to believe in yourself. You don't want to be, overconfident. You really want to be aware of the stones and how they're delicately balanced. But if you think, you can do just one more, you got to believe. Because if you're trying to be like, I think I can maybe do one more, it's not going to work out. You have to be like, it's going to happen. I believe. And a lot of times with that, maybe that belief makes the whole balance fall over. But you just got to pick yourself back up, really believe that it is possible. And I've done this over and over again. And actually, with the balance I did on the cover of my book, this is actually the second day that I was attempting this. And this is in San Francisco, and the sun was setting. And I like to time it so the sun is like right above the horizon. It's got this nice glow, and then it just sinks and the balance is done. But what happened is, it's like a nice big timer. And as it got to right around here, I was working with these top stones and I could feel it. It was like so close. It was there, but it wasn't quite clicking into place. So what happened is the sun gets right there and then the whole balance just collapses. And what happened is if you look at this tiny little rock with this big one, that's just where the weak spot was. So unfortunately, I didn't have enough time to rebuild it right there, but I had to believe. And that belief brought me back there the second day. And luckily, these rocks were kind of still around, and I could just, within, I think, 30 minutes, it was just doot, doot, doot. And there you go. And it actually ended up being the cover of my book. So I, I'm just, I'm not really going to let failure define me. And I hope the same is true for you. I know that in our world, we're taught to do it perfectly the first time, but the learning doesn't really happen that way. It happens when we're dusting ourselves off and figuring out what the heck just happened. So for me, I think I'm at my limit. I'm tempted to do just one more, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to go ahead and just put these other little crystals around to just fill it out. Make some little mini balances. And if you're finding that you can only stack it, so high, but you have a lot of material, try to do, several balances and make a little village. It's kind of cool. There's a great little energy when you have multiple balances. So for us to continue, I want you to have a balance up. Your hands are off and you're just like, okay, I'm happy. Because really, you know, a rock balance is just figuring out what that point of happiness is within yourself. And if you only need one rock to be happy, like one rock balance, then, you know, that's super awesome. Congratulations. But I want you to explore that edge, you know, really lift your limits, go somewhere new every single time. And honestly, that's the secret to how I'm making like all these amazing balances in the wild is I'm just every time trying to do something that I haven't done before. So for instance, I have this one. This one's called Trust, you know, for obvious reasons. Here's you, here's me, and here's this awesome workshop we're doing, but we just trust each other. And, you know, I did this. So I'm not really going to do this in the future. I've kind of already been there and I just want to keep moving forward. So either way, just get to the point right now where you're like, okay, this is enough. Your hands are up. I can't see your hands, so I'm just going to have to give you a few more moments. But you just want to have something up for where we're going to go next. Also, if you have any questions or comments or insights, pop them in the chat. I'd love to hear from you guys. I'm sure you guys would love to hear from each other and see how you're doing. I'm going to do a little last minute raking here, and I know this is definitely when I tend to hold my breath, but I'm just reminding myself to breathe. Okay. It's cool. It's got like a little river. Maybe make another little delta. And if you guys remember my friend Hanuman at the beginning, I'm just going to go ahead and put him here. And I like to put the rake in his hand. So it looks like he kind of made this. So this is great. You know, like let's pretend I just had breakfast and make this cool thing and just leave it up. Maybe I'll put it over here so that, you know, I can do stuff on my kitchen or around my home. And it's just great to look at, to just remind myself, oh yeah, that's right. You know, if you get a nasty email or something that's a lot of friction, you can just kind of not get caught up in it. You can clear yourself out. And for me, all I gotta do is just glance at my crystal Zen garden. So hopefully you guys have your balances up. Just want to check in. Okay, cool. Thank you all for being here. Just so grateful that we took the time to be here together. It's awesome. Okay, so we're at our limits. And what I want you to do is take a few breaths and just simply enjoy. That's all you got to do. Just soak it up, enjoy it. If you want to take a photo, I recommend it. Maybe make it last a little longer, but it's kind of cool. Man, that's sweet. Pictures don't do it justice, though. Also, if you post it or anything, you want to share it, tag me at Travis Ruskus. You can see my name, just RUSKUS, but I like to see it from your perspective and kind of see your awesome balances. And it's cool. People that follow me from these workshops, I like to follow you back and kind of just see how you evolve and grow. And it just becomes awesome to connect with you. So yeah, definitely follow me on social media at Travis Ruskus. But here we go. Okay. The future is coming. It's inevitable. And this next principle is, it's the toughest, but it's also the easiest. And it can be the most freeing. And I've had the most spiritual success when I embody this principle. So what this principle is release. And what I want you to do is just take a big breath in. When you exhale, you knock over your balance and you say thank you. You just move on to the next moment. So let's do this. And sometimes when I do these crazy balances, I like to think, you know, what's a cool rock that I can knock over where it does like this epic fall? But for us to move on, you need to knock over your balance. So here we go. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Cool. Hopefully you've knocked over your balance. If you're finding that you still have a balance up, look at that attachment within yourself. Move on. You need to release. You need to let go. And this is why release is so important, is because at a very basic level, full hands can't grab new things. If we're so busy attached to our rock balance, we can't make a new balance. We can't move on to the next moment. And unfortunately, we have moments of bliss that we want to just kind of relive over and over, or in the new moment we want to kind of match it with these highs that we had. And then we also have these painful lows and these traumas or these previous experiences that just kind of continue to appear in the present moment. So if you can release both, I know it's hard, and this is something I practice daily, but it just allows you to be in the present moment and really see what's in front of you. Because, for instance, like right now when we're recording this is during the holidays, and I know, especially for myself being around family, I can't release my family. Like eventually, yeah, they will pass on, and like I'm grateful to still be in the presence of them. But there are some things that they do that just totally annoy me. And I can't change that. But what I can do is release in myself that anger, that frustration, that sadness, even the happiness. Just release it. And why release is so important is because when you have, like, let's say you're having a glass of wine or a cup of tea with a really good friend or a loved one, you want to know that it's not going to last forever. So the conversation that you're having with them should really matter. Because if you're with them and you're like on your phone and you're just kind of, oh, like half in, like you're not actually there with them. And a month later you may be looking back on that like, man, I really wish that I could have another meet up with that person because I wasn't there actually in the moment. So um, that's kind of what I'll say about that. I know that with the painful moments, they kind of just keep creeping in, but what you got to do is just let go. Just let go. When you see them, you become aware of them, you notice the pain that it has in your life, but you just release. You just release. And if you're still here, thank you for kind of sticking through this. This is the hardest principle, I know, but if you're going to be enlightened, you have to release. So just let it go. And if we look kind of at what we have here right now, it's kind of what we started with. But, something has changed in us. You have a deeper understanding of the stone. You've just kind of evolved a little bit more. And that takes us to our final principle, which is to evolve. And really, what you want to do is kind of leave the past in the past and then treat every moment as a fresh start. This moment, we're going to put that in the past because now we have a new moment. And then we're going to put that in the past because now we have a new moment. So really kind of see with these clear, fresh eyes, like the beginner's mind. You always are approaching it almost as if it's the first time you saw these stones or whatever you're doing. Just kind of cleanse yourself and see it with fresh eyes, that evolution. Continuing on a little bit with evolution, what we want to do is just see how you're going to make the world a better place, basically, and how you can evolve the person next to you and enhance their life. With me, it's just, I want to teach you guys how to rock balance. I know that when you do that, it will be a small spark that can have huge ripple effects. So this is how I'm evolving the world. And I hope with the work that you're doing, that you are also just making this world a better place. So real quick, we only have a few minutes left. I would love to see you guys start over, just clean your slate so you have nothing here, and then we're going to make an evolved rock balance together. Okay? As we do this too, I'm going to go over leave no trace and just if you're going to do this in the wild and how to navigate that. So just give me a moment here. Also, if you guys have any last minute questions or comments, pop them in the chat. I love to hear your perspective. Cool. So again, I'm just going to shake it. Okay, let's evolve. Let me check up on the chat. Great to hear from you guys. Cool. Awesome. Positive vibes for those of you that are commenting. I hope that everyone else is doing well. You're kind of, if you're having a tough time, you're just kind of pushing through. Just try not to beat yourself up or be hard on yourself. It's just a pile of rocks, you know. Okay, so we're gonna do this evolution here. So again, you know, the cycle completes. The evolution is not, you know, it's not a one-way arrow. It's like the circle completes itself. So we come back to breathe, right? We're gonna breathe into the moment. Then we look at all the opportunity around us. Once we see that opportunity, we have to believe in ourselves enough to pick up that first stone. From there, got to find that balance. So let's see. Once we're finding this balance, it's just discovering where the limits are, breathing, that final moment of balance when it all clicks into place. Maybe I can do a little side thing. Don't want to get too cocky, but it's kind of cool. That's an evolution. I've never done this before. Pretty cool. Okay, so we only have a few moments left. I'm going to quickly talk about doing this in the wild because, like I said at the very beginning, I have had incredible moments of enlightenment when I am making a balance at the edge of the ocean and there's a sunset and I'm just like connected with everything. So I encourage you guys to do this. However, people who discover my work, they actually don't discover it there in the wild, maybe a couple people walking by on the beach, but you know, I have these images and they go all over the world and I get people who love them and also people who don't love them and people who are environmentalists and think what I'm doing is destroying the earth and is illegal and et cetera, et cetera. So I could see that as a weakness, but what I really want to do is just lean into that weakness. Why do you think it's illegal? Why is this so bad? Because on the other side of this, I've had people come to tears when they're balancing rocks. I've had people had incredible moments of just enlightenment because of rock balancing. So I'm trying to connect the two. And what I found, the way to navigate this tightrope is in the United States, we are very particular about national parks because in part we've kind of destroyed half of the country just building our homes and just, you know, taking the resources. So that's a whole nother subject, but what I found is that there are two simple rules that I use. So when you're doing this in the wild, if you can follow these rules, it will just help you. The first one is if you're picking up a rock or when you pick up a rock, make sure that you're not disturbing any animal or plant life in that process, that it's not covered in moss, you're not, you know, ripping it out of the ground, doesn't leave a hole, or, you know, if it's on the beach, there's not like crustaceans or little crabs or anything who use that rock as a home. You want to make sure that it's just nice and clean. And there's places, you know, on tops of mountains where there's so much wind that not a lot of things grows, or in the river, sometimes they just get tumbled downstream and they can be kind of clean. Um, or like my favorite spot is in California, just along the beaches. And there's spots where the tide just comes and goes and the sand kind of covers the rocks and then uncovers them. So the rocks are really clean. And when I do stuff like this, these rocks are clean. I'm not destroying any homes. They're not covered in anything. They're just clean. So look for those spots. The second rule is to always knock over your balance before you leave. And I know this is against what common mainstream rock balancing is, but that's kind of the point, because mainstream rock balancing is like, or if you've seen them on a hiking trail or out in the wild, you'll just see like, hey, here's this cool structure, and like, how did it get here? Who did this? But what I see is someone who has attachment, that they have made this structure and this is their ego, and then they walk off for others to enjoy their ego beyond them being there. And I think that that's kind of the opposite of the point of this. You want to definitely connect with yourself, find the spiritual compass, work through any blocks that you may have. But then at the end, you just release and you let go and you move on and kind of return the natural habitat to what it was before you got here. So these are the two simple rules. Don't disturb any plant, animal or plant life. And then two, always knock over your balances. And that will just really help you. If you're finding that you're like, yeah, okay, but when I'm in the wild, I'm just going to set up my balances because I really like that. You have to be aware that when you have a balance up and you leave it, other people are going to come across it. And when they see that, they may not know, hey, don't rip the rocks out of the ground. Don't disturb any animal or plant life. And then all of a sudden, they make their own cool little balance, and you start to have this cool balance garden, and then they leave, and then you have someone new come that's like, oh, wow, this is cool. I'm going to rip a rock out of the ground and then make my own balance. And then pretty soon, you do have a cool little balance garden. But what I see whenever I see these in the wild is attachment. I see a sea of people that cannot let go and actually really be in the moment. So do whatever you want, really. I just have to do that for legal reasons. And I just want you to really be aware, because what we want to do is when we go on hikes, like we have an amazing hike, the view is so spectacular, and we look down and we see like this amazing rock. And we take this rock with us, put it by our computer or somewhere that we're reminded of like that time that we went on this amazing hike. But what you can do is if you see that rock in the moment, like sure, maybe pick it up, really soak it up, but then put it back. And by doing that, you're forced to really absorb the moment around you. So, as a rock balance artist, I have encountered incredible rocks, like just the most beautiful stones. But I like to think of them sort of as a flower. And if I pick it and take it with me, then others can't really experience that. So that's kind of all that I'll say about that. And, do what you want with it. So I hope you guys are making your evolved rock balances here. We are pretty much at the end. One last little note, the Rock Balancers Guide is the book, but if you want to go to the rockbalancersguide.com, you can see the book. I have an online course that dives a lot deeper, but I also have these exact materials. So if you want to order these from Amazon, get them shipped straight to your door, the resources are there for you to do that. And really, guys, this is it. So I just wanted to thank you for being here once again. Hope you learned something. And really what I found with these is that, it's just like a little spark that can take a lifetime to master. So if there's something, once we hang up and kind of release this, that you want to just reflect on yourself, like maybe you need to focus on believing in yourself or something, I just ask that you kind of look into that. So really quickly, I'm going to go through the 7 principles, just super brief. And I want you to tell yourself if you feel like, yes, I have this, or no, I need to work on this. Okay. So 1, breathe. 2, opportunity. 3, believe. 4 is balance. 5 is limits. 6 is release. And then 7 is evolve. So thank you all once again for being here, letting me go on my epic rants. Again, I encourage you to connect with me on social media at Travis Ruskus. I'd love to hear from you. And yeah, once again, the book, The Rock Balancer's Guide. I'm just super grateful that you're here. So I'm gonna go ahead and end it here. If you want to keep your balance up, do it. I'm gonna go ahead and knock mine over, but I've given you the tools, and now it's up to you. So happy holidays to everyone, and have a great day. Peace.